A specific level will be reached after the price of gold has risen significantly. In terms of return percentage, silver will likely surpass gold by a factor of 4, but it will enter a bubble phase and remain outside of the monetary system despite its meteoric rise. Nevertheless, there are nations whose central banks are purchasing silver, which makes it appear as though it could also be remonetized. In a bind, the Federal Reserve is. At this point, a monetary reset is our final objective. The Gold Silver Show is back with Mike Maloney and Alan Hibb. Hey Alan, how's it going? Mike, I am doing fine. Here we go with an Eric Young tweet as our jumping off point. I believe Putin and Russia just made it official that they are not going to fall for the US digital fairy dust scam, he says. I can almost feel the bricks falling into place. I don't understand what he means. He is essentially describing a Russian advisor who is expressing concern that the United States is attempting to take advantage of the rest of the globe. Thus, his words are as follows. Just give me a moment to read over some of the translated text. Proclaiming that the United States has come up with a brilliant plan to pay down its enormous debt using the money that the rest of the world is contributing. Oh, wow. Here in the US, we are currently attempting to reshape the cryptocurrency and gold markets. Keep in mind the magnitude of their debt, $35 trillion. Both the cryptocurrency and gold markets provide viable alternatives to the established international monetary system. The federal government's moves in this sector show that restoring faith in the dollar is a top priority. Yes, the United States intends to resolve its financial issues by imposing its costs on the rest of the globe, just as it did in the 1930s and the 1970s, as you pointed out, Mike. Now it's time to force everyone into the cryptocurrency cloud. Therefore, Washington will depreciate that debt once everyone comes in. So, Mike, what are your thoughts? Could this be true? Number. The debt is losing value. Nevertheless, due to the mathematical laws that state fiat currency must inevitably lose value, there was an inherent need to dilute the currency supply to prevent system collapse. However, the Federal Reserve is in a tough spot. A trap awaits them. What would happen if they decided to depreciate the dollar and switch to digital currency issued by a central bank or stablecoins? The value of treasuries is being eroded. The public and foreign investors demand higher interest rates when they observe the depreciation of the currency and its impact on purchasing power. With interest rates on the rise, the refinancing of our nation's $35 trillion debt has skyrocketed. The cost would skyrocket. In other words, if they were able to discount it to the point that they could eliminate this debt, the cost of refinancing would be a time component of all the treasuries. And then, after they've reached maturity, they're essentially paid off and gone. They disappeared. We simply cannot allow it to occur, unless our income is far more than our expenses, and our tax revenue is sufficient. What is the current yearly allocation of the deficit spending? We have recently enacted a bill that I am referring to as the Big Bad Boondoggle. Well, that's $2 trillion. Yeah, we will spend more than we earn, $2 trillion. In addition to adding that many each year, we must refinance and roll over the existing maturing treasuries. Plus, no one will buy them if the dollar is depreciating too quickly because of the interest costs. No one, not even the stablecoin issuers, will want to deal with these. The interest rate will rise even further as a result of governments selling off their treasuries. So you can't keep the game going by taxing the population to that extent. In a bind, the Federal Reserve is. At this point, a monetary reset is our final destination. Midway through, he brings up gold, but then he shifts his focus to stable coins and cryptocurrency. In my opinion, gold is the solution. Physical gold is supported by silver and gold. Now gold, if we return to a monetary system based on gold, the price of gold will skyrocket before being fixed at a specific level. As far as the returns are concerned, silver will soar to new heights and explode. The percentage of silver in circulation is expected to surpass that of gold by a factor of 4. However, if silver is not included in the monetary system, it will experience a bubble phase. Some countries are purchasing silver for their central banks, which suggests that it could be remonetized as well. In this scenario, gold would experience price appreciation, while silver would experience price fluctuations. When it does rise to its peak, though, its performance will dwarf that of gold by a wide margin. Do your own study and come to your own conclusions. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody. Go elsewhere for financial guidance. You can't put your trust in what we say. What I'm doing is this. I bought a lot of gold, but whenever the gold-silver ratio was high, I bought silver instead. Now, when the ratio is low, I'm still buying silver instead of gold. At certain ratios, I'll switch some of my gold for silver and vice versa. Depending on my opinion about the dollar's future, I might even convert some of my silver and gold into dollars to buy real estate or invest in my farm or something similar. Yeah, very lovely. Yeah. My point is that I wonder whether a stablecoin or a treasury might save the dollar in this situation. Layers of money have been on my mind recently. Layers 1 to 4 are presented here. Just so you know, Mike, your series Hidden Secrets of Money served as inspiration for my upcoming series Hidden Secrets of Value. This graphic is from that series. This episode is titled Designing the Perfect Money, and I basically ask, could we design a perfect money? Could that be gold, or is there a way to make it better? Were we to achieve it, what steps would we take? Plus, my view of the monetary system's constituent parts is that gold is currency and all others are forms of credit. As this type of graphic shows, using a credit card constitutes an agreement to pay bank deposits, and a promise is a bank deposit. Credit card purchases, however, result in monetary deposits to your bank account. Prior to the time you used that credit card, they did not exist. Yeah, I get it. However, there is an additional level beyond this. Yes, the bank pays the vendor and establishes new bank deposits. Nevertheless, you will subsequently be required to pay the bank deposits back to the bank. It seems like you're still committed to paying off those bank deposits at a later date. A deposit in a bank is an undertaking to pay a banknote, which is itself a commitment to pay a gold certificate. Yeah. This has gone through a number of iterations, beginning with a gold certificate and ending with a promise to pay gold. The true currency is gold. Returning to the previous point, the Russian advisor claims that the US is attempting to depreciate the dollar by encouraging the use of stable coins. To help you make sense of it, consider a stablecoin to be merely an alternative kind of layer for money. Simply said, a stablecoin is an obligation to repay deposits to financial institutions at a later date, plus everything on layers 2 and above. Every one of them is a promise. Well, that's about it. They're all instruments of credit, not to mention that its worth is directly proportional to the issuer's reliability. Therefore, the creation of a new stable coin by the US government does nothing to improve their creditworthiness if they already had low creditworthiness. They continue to lack credibility and have doubts about it. If you want to avoid all these shady dealings, all you have to do is acquire gold or something without a counterparty. The process was straightforward. In 1970, they removed Layer 1, and it had been largely in place since 1933 or 1934, as you mentioned while walking me through it. At the very end of the line, it's IOU plus more IUS, and the system is really unstable because it's just IUS on top of IUS. Nothing is underneath any of this. And thus, it all comes down to whether or not they add steady coins to the top of another level 4 piece. So on level 4, you'd have the option to buy with credit as well as steady coins. The structure is still based on an inverted pyramid that was originally constructed on sand. Very much so. It will not be able to endure. Yeah, sometimes that's true. The problem is that gold appears to be the item that will be reintroduced when a level 1 is needed to restore stability. Central banks possess that. The world's central banks view it as a top-tier asset. Eastern central banks are presently purchasing it in preparation for this, and it's also what Trump is mentioning and everything else. It appears that level 1 is making a triumphant return. Having gold and silver on hand will allow you to achieve enormous gains in absolute purchasing power value if you are ahead of the curve during this new monetary reset. In a word, yes. So, Mike, there are moments when we liken fiat currencies to parachuteless skydivers. No parachute, steady coins tied to the US dollar, and this person passed out. Not a nice sight, make up today's meme. all they're going to do is crash to the floor. Ugly will be the outcome. Yeah, when people talk about the US dollar index, we always mention that the dollar went up today. Absolutely not. Although its decline was smaller than that of other fiat currencies that day, it was still smaller than that of gold and silver. If you invest at golds.com, you can win a bonus silver worth up to $2,000. It's simple. The first thing you need to do is open a gold storage account, not an IRA. Acquiring your precious metals is the second step. Thirdly, have an additional sum of silver, up to $2,000, deposited directly into your vault. To obtain your silver, go to golds.com/freesilver.